Welcome, everybody. I am so excited to be sitting here with fellow writer Heather Wild, who I've gotten to know over the past couple of years, who's been working on her memoir, her beautiful memoir, Tumbled. And I'm going to read it's called, the subtitle is A Memoir of Perseverance, Personal Growth, and Magical Transformation. And I just finished it. I basically, like, what do you call that when you read a book fast? I mean, I read it over just over a day. I mean, I'm a pretty quick reader. I binged it. That's what you could say. I binged it. And just kudos and congratulations, Heather. Well done.
Thank you.
So just to give people a little background about your memoir, can you tell us just a little bit about where this story came from, how you decided that it was time to write your story? Yeah.
I loved you holding up the book. It's not often I get that view of it. Yes. Right. And I named the warrior that showed up on the cover Jules. And so the Jules is sitting here staring at me. So what a fabulous way to start this is to be looking at her as she's looking at me, which that's its own little story that I can tell later. But, I did not aspire or dream of being a writer. I was an English teacher. I loved I love stories. I grew up reading books. I escaped with books as a child and all the way through, I just get absorbed into books. So I loved to read, and I wanted to share that experience with students too, to try and spark their desire to read. And so I became an English teacher for middle and high school. And even during all those years of teaching, I taught students how to formulate narratives and stories and fiction and nonfiction. And I never dreamt I wanted to write a book. And so I can say that it really, as life started unfolding for me, and it maybe wasn't unfolding in the way that I had planned, which I don't know if anyone else has that experience, but it did. I don't know, but it wasn't. And it seemed like I was catching myself off guard with the ridiculousness of my life. It was like I was having an out-of-body experience with some of these really big moments. And it's like, what's happening? What's going on with me? And it was like, what? And I kept kind of saying, oh, I belong on Dateline. And, you say that enough and you're hearing it. And I realized, I have a story to tell, and I think when I first believed that, and when I first started penning the words over 5 years ago, it wasn't really with the best intentions. It was coming from a place of stress and trauma and craving validation. I craved people, masses to say, we're sorry. The victim mentality, maybe, right? We want comfort. And the universe didn't like that. So, I mapped something out, and I had a ways to go. I had a lot of lessons to learn and some inner peace to find. And then it started just hinting that maybe it wanted to be written. It was more like the book told me it kind of wanted to be written. And then it just sort of fell into place. And it took a lot of growth and transformation to get to a place where I could write that with vulnerability and put it out there. So
yeah, they say don't tell your story when you're in the middle of it. Tell it when it's sort of when it's over, which is sometimes can be tricky, right? Because life keeps coming at us and we're always growing and evolving and we're always in the story. There's a plot twist coming this afternoon we don't even know about. And where do you stop and where do you know, okay, now I'm ready to tell this story? Yeah, I love that. If you had to, I don't know where this question is coming from, but if you had to say this is a story about a woman who, and put it into a sentence or something, what would you say?
That's good. This is a story of a girl who became a woman who was so encapsulated under the layers of society and responsibility and expectations from others that she didn't even know. She didn't even know that she was so buried. And, when you have those really big moments where something doesn't go well, it makes you reflect a little, like, why? And, it kind of like, the hero's journey, talking about like flicking off some cement and there's gold and you see a fleck of gold, and I feel like I have spent so long chiseling off the cement, because the gold is what we want and we're
Yeah.
never satisfied. But it's like, I had one of those surprise moments catch me off guard yesterday, and they come whenever, right? And it's a whole new thing. But so really, it was just that I literally didn't understand how I was not living a life authentic to me in any form of the word, to the point where I even had to choose a new name. Like, it was just, I was not a human that knew how to think independently. So it's the story of like how shocking it is to figure that out.
Yeah. And how we figure out who we are is often through relationship. It's always through relationship. I mean, we like to think we're like some island of ourselves, but whether it's relationship with our parents, our partners, our friends, our work colleagues, like that's how we do it. And this book is really about relationship and the complexity of that. And it's an amazing, so much vulnerability, so much honesty. And I know that people are going to read this and go, wow, like I'm not alone. This has happened to somebody else. This is, yeah.
And you know what? The one you missed is relationship with self. Like,
Yeah.
that is the biggest one that I had to understand. And that is the pivot. It's not even so much because people are everywhere and they come and go. It was my relationship with myself and honoring myself that was so frozen. I didn't exist. And so I think so many of us have these narratives in our head, and we can support and we can love and we can have beautiful, healthy relationships with others, and we can be teachers and guides. But under it all, to what degree do we honor ourselves is pivotal. It's
Absolutely.
pivotal. So,
and it's so easy I just from my own personal experience of getting lost and doing my own chiseling and chipping, it's like it's so easy for us as women sometimes, or as just humans, loving, compassionate humans, to get lost in pleasing other people, towing the line for society, whatever it is, that self relationship kind of gets put on the back burner somewhere. So one of the themes that I really felt through the book was kind of this relationship to your body, and your body as this vehicle, and then also how you worked with your body to kind of work through things. And I just wanted to read a quote that kind of stood out for me. And then, I would just love to hear you talk about that. There were situations in my marriage that I needed to do something about, but I just couldn't think about the effort that would take. So instead, I pushed my body to master a 26.2-mile race when I never considered myself a runner. I was unable to do what I needed to, so I ran. I get chills when I read that. There's a million ways to run.
Yes.
There's a million ways to run, whether it's running a marathon, whether it's getting, drinking Zimas, whether it's going to TJ Maxx. I mean, there's a million ways. And some of those can look very functional, and not to say that wasn't functional, right? But it was your best idea in the moment.
Yes, that was. And, isn't it funny? I said, I never considered myself a runner. And I don't think I ever did. I ran many, many half marathons, just as many 5Ks, and one marathon. And I never considered myself a runner. Right. And just kind of like how I said, I never expected to be a writer. I just keep doing things and they just keep happening. But oh, yeah. And so much of that too was so unhealthy with the running, because I was doing it because I was so paranoid of my body changing as a young mother. And the things we can't control. And so much of my identity was wrapped up in my self-worth was wrapped up in my appearance. And so, here I am in full-blown trauma. My body is changing. And so I was running to try and control this body. And that alone was from it wasn't for me. It wasn't, it was about approval and acceptance. And it did feel great to run it. I mean, those accomplishments were super gratifying.
Absolutely. And it's something we can control. We can go for a 5 or 10 mile run when we can't control whatever the thing is that's just absolutely out of control.
And I don't know if I wrote this in the book, but something that's interesting. That summer when I moved out and was living in a camper, and so life is upside down. I don't know where I'm going to live within weeks. I went to run. This would have been 2 years after I ran the marathon. I hadn't ran since then, like at all. And I went to run on a track because it's what I knew to do, right? I was processing. I did 1 lap and I fell to my knees sobbing.
Yeah.
The things we do, right? The things we do.
And yeah, just honoring the sacred journey that we're all on and that you're on. And it's just so powerful and so important to pay attention to it. Yeah, I was on my knees in my kitchen just yesterday for different reasons, sobbing. So that's a good place to be. I feel like when I get down on my knees and I have my head to the ground and I'm just like, yeah, it's like a beautiful.
Yeah. And I've learned to listen to my body too, as I've honored it, right? Part of me releasing myself from some of that trauma was honoring this physical being and who respects it, who doesn't, and how do I respect it? And it's funny, as I've healed through writing myself, my journey, I have spiritually, mentally, and all that really cleared away a lot, and I feel good. But I can say I'm very, very cognizant that my physical body still holds a lot of trauma. Like I am now faced with a lot of, chronic pain, have now for a couple of years. And I, on a spiritual level, know like it's in there, and I work to get it out. I understand, but it's amazing. Our body tells our story.
Yeah.
And in the same way I pushed it to run this marathon and it worked. Now, I couldn't run a mile right now. I couldn't. And so it's interesting how this vehicle responds and then continues to carry some of what we've gone through. And I don't know that I realized that. I had to clear out some of the other stuff before I realized like this body's tired.
Yeah.
He's tired.
And then I feel like we never finish. The work is always in front of, like the work is always there, but yet they were okay. Here you are standing, you've published this amazing book. And yeah, I'm just so grateful for that. I wanted to ask, how has writing this memoir, like writing all your story out for you to see and understand, like, how has that impacted how you feel about yourself? Like at the end of it, I'm just curious about that because I find the writing process really changes things.
Oh, it does, doesn't it? It opened this new avenue for me. It was scary, of course, to face the stories again and then to keep revisiting them, to pen them perfectly, or so that someone else could understand. And how much do you include or not include? So that was a journey. Publishing it and being that vulnerable was a journey. Being scared of the unknowns was a journey. But then after about 2 weeks after I published and I realized the sky wasn't going to fall down. I mean, it took me a couple of weeks to, you're kind of waiting. What's the mic drop? And all of a sudden I felt gleeful release of just, it's out there, and it's been out there for a couple of weeks and I'm still here. And then it opened up this new avenue of just craving that creativity. It was flowing. It has to flow to create a book. And it was interesting that I didn't want it to stop. I didn't want creativity to stop. I didn't want the good feelings to stop. And I saw the book wasn't published and I was already in such a flow with creating and, creating this art, the first 100 days and understanding what I felt with that I trusted those feelings enough to hear myself say, you can do more than teaching, which I loved. I actually was like, yeah, but that's so structured. Teaching is so structured. We live by bells, we live by calendars, and I craved being fluid and like writing a book and creating. And I quit my career. Like I quit my career. The book wasn't even published. I did not have a plan B. I was a single mom with no savings, and I had a dream about corn, and I quit. And I said, no, this is what I want. And there's no way I could have had the confidence in myself to even vaguely consider that. I still don't know how I did it. But all that was done was the rough draft. That's all that was done. But doing that rough draft empowered me enough to believe in myself and what felt good. And to understand that even if I pivoted away from teaching and education, that was my career, I could go back. Like
Right.
nothing's finite. And so it was releasing control and saying, I want to feel more of this. So it's changed everything.
Wow. Wow.
Everything. It's been a full year. I turned in my resignation on the 4th of July last year. So it's
Wow.
been one calendar year, and guess what? I'm still here.
You're still here.
Yeah.
I love that. So it's like when we have that, when we find that integrity, we finally do write the book that we've been saying we want to write, and we finally get it done. It's like, or we get the first draft even done. It's phenomenal what that does metaphorically for our belief in ourselves and our trust in ourselves and our lives.
Absolutely.
So good.
So beautiful, and you can't predict that. Like someone, how good are you willing to let it get?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Because that's what it is.
I'm wondering, like, one of the neat things about memoir for me was when other people came up to me and shared something that they got out of the book, or, reviewed the book and shared something, and just the impact that my writing had on other people, setting them free from whatever it was they were trapped by. And I just wondered, were there any moments or something that you remember that felt significant for you? Sometimes it's even just a friend reading it. I mean, not necessarily somebody out in the public world, but yeah.
You know what? Just yesterday, I was sitting on a lawn with someone, a former coworker, someone that's in a different generation. And first time I'd seen her since she had read the book. And she said to me, she had this exact moment with me yesterday. And it came at just the right time of when I needed it. And she just said, that part where you were talking about how women can be just stuck in a culture lacking respect, and we just sit there and take it, and people around us take it, and generations have been taking it. And in this case, we were talking about, just this lack of respect and being highly sexualized, and we feel so small. And this woman who, is such a good friend, just said, because she had been a part of that, and she said, I didn't realize, no one has said it so that I understood this was why I never felt like I belonged. She said, I thought something was wrong with me because I didn't fit in and I felt uncomfortable. And so this person is, just retired. And what a beautiful thing to share that moment with another woman that's saying, man, I didn't realize that sexual yucky culture wasn't sitting with me, sitting well with me for decades. And I thought I was an outsider. And really all it was that, we don't realize until we can see the bigger picture that we get to choose, how people treat us and who's allowed in our life. And sometimes that means you have to walk away from a lot. And just that validation and that shared moment to me, from someone that wasn't, in my age group, to say, I get it and I didn't understand. And we're not alone, and we take so much, we accept so much that we just don't stand up to. And it just happened to be, we found community together in that feeling. And you know what that means? That means that she will be more cognizant of what people say around her now. Yeah. Right? I mean, she'll know, or maybe she'll feel stronger not going back to that area and talking to those people. And And so it was a really amazing moment at just the right time that I needed to hear someone had gained something from my writing and my experience and my vulnerability.
Right, right. Because sometimes when we put out a book like this, it's like you put your whole heart, your whole body on a platter and just kind of serve it up. And yeah, it can be quite an experience to have people reacting to that, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and now I want to just touch on the fact that, you know, I always tell people if they're thinking about writing a book, one of the things is when you write a book and you actually like really write a book and you put your heart and soul in it and you take it to the finish line and you would pay attention to quality and you get assistance from helpful people, editors, friends, you know, beta readers, all that, and you've produced something good or very good, it's like it has this effect of giving you legitimacy in the world. And I mean, legitimacy, like in other people's eyes, because you've done this really hard thing, like running a marathon, same thing, I would imagine. But in your case, you wrote a book and you published it. And then I don't know if you got approached, but how you got this second sort of career where you have been now hired to help somebody else write their story and produce a book. Can you talk a little bit about that journey as a writer?
That's about getting out of my own way, right? Like, when you publish a book, and I self-published, it was all encompassing. It was not without speed bumps, especially that first time. Like it's a hard way to end a beautiful journey is to try and self-publish. Like it sort of deflates you. It's like, oh, just the little technical things that come up. And I was getting excited for my book launch party. I had all the nerves going on. And I was approached by someone who knew me and just said, an older person was in hospice care locally and had always dreamt of being an author. And they just said, would you have any interest? And so at that point, it was a very broad question. And I actually didn't have my next plan in life figured out, because I couldn't see past the book. And so that turned into a beautiful journey. The book is called Pigtails and Popcorn, Patricia's memoir. And the book that it resembles is Tuesdays with Morrie. Like Tuesdays with Morrie, I had not read it before this year, and I was looking for the right model. And so when you're getting someone's story, and then they're empowering you and entrusting you to create a book about them. I mean, there's just so many layers there. And so what I found was, number one, I love that connection with someone. I love being that space where they can be vulnerable and transparent, tell their stories, feel seen and heard. And then I also understand that I am truly very gifted at putting together the things that are not said. It's the essence of people. You might tell me 5 stories about trips you've taken, but I'm able to see and hear the pieces that you say under, and so this book was beautiful. It was healing for me. It was healing for the person. And it was an honor. And so in 4 months, because she's in hospice care and we just don't know longevity before, going to the other side. So I met, interviewed, wrote, and the publish button is ready in 4.5 months.
Wow.
It was intense, right? It was the most beautiful thing I've ever done. It superseded my book. That quality time with a human, honoring their life, and bringing them, that was like nothing I've ever experienced. And so it's a unique opportunity. It's very unique it's not ghostwriting, because that's not something I'm interested in. I'm not interested in like saying I'm Sarah Seidelman and I want to write Sarah Seidelman's story.
Mm-hmm.
I like partnering with you and talking about what you want and creating the vision from what I see and you see. And actually, I have my next contract right now. I've already worked on that third book starting. And that one is also universally granted. And that one is going to be worthy of another interview.
So neat. Oh, that's amazing, amazing.
It just makes me so happy. And like I say, now my thing, and now doing the 100-day journey again, and understanding my love of color and painting. I'm just announcing to anyone when I grow up, I want to be an artist and a writer. And that is what I want to do. It's like I want to be quiet and give my light in a very connected way, not in a broad brush stroke way. I want intimate relationships, intimate energy exchanges.
Mhm.
I want it to matter. And
Yeah,
so
you're
it's a
doing
good step
it.
forward. I
So
know, so far, right? I mean,
that's right. You're doing it. Well, I just wanted to ask somebody maybe who's listening to this is feeling buried under a lot of cement right now and looking at their life going, oh my gosh, this feels like a Dateline, or oh my gosh, I feel so stuck and trapped. How did I get here? I don't like one bit of it. I mean, I feel like I should be lucky or I should just stay because that's what I'm supposed to do, but I can't take it. Like what would you offer to that person? What would you invite them to do?
you want to know the one thing that I wish someone had told me a long time ago, which wasn't that long ago, but feels like it. Find one person to hold on to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you had Missy, the beautiful therapist who you
Yes,
talked
but
about in
you
the
be
book.
one good person that will say, okay, let me offer you a little clarity. Let me offer you that kernel. Because it matters.
Because it
Phew.
matters.
Oh, and
Yeah,
so then once you have someone that's helping you or that you trust, and it might not be anybody in your circle,
right.
right? Then it's like as you get a baby step of like, okay, they said something that, I mean, it's such a baby step. And if safety is involved, then maybe those steps need to go faster. Like safety can be definitely a concern, but it is about the baby steps. And just keep leaning into what feels better to honor yourself and away from what is making you feel yucky. Because yucky's never right.
Yeah.
Yucky is never honoring yourself ever, no matter who it comes from, whether you're doing it yourself or anyone else. Yucky is never honoring yourself. If you feel yucky in any areas, it's a
Yeah.
message. So find someone that's not yucky and lean into them a little bit, and you'll know when you find them, right?
Yeah.
And so do that. That's what it takes. That's what it takes. And I didn't find Missy until long after choosing to do this myself, which is why this is an emotional charge.
Yeah. 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 Well, thank you so much, Heather, for being here. And you guys, the book is
You.
Tumbled. And yeah, if you're feeling that way, like we were just discussing, like this is an amazing firsthand account of a woman coming to grips with the fact that her life is not where she ever wanted or expected it to be. And then slowly, bit by bit, extricating herself from that. So thank you so much, Heather, for coming to be with us.
Yeah,
And yeah, just
thank you,
appreciate
Sarah.
it.
I appreciate it too. Thank you.